Hello, love. So happy to be back with you. Here we are in November. I know it goes so fast. It's been a little warmer here in Arizona than I would like. We've been in the 90s. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen it. So I know it's been cold everywhere else. So I'm sending you lots of warm sunshine and vibes from Arizona. But woo, I know it has been warm here. I'm excited for a little, 70s. Usually I love the 80s, but I'm like, let's get into the 70s. So I love this question. Should I journal? Ask yourself this question. Do you put the pressure on yourself that if I just journaled more, right, I would lose more weight? I mean, I remember so much of my life. I'm like, ooh, even when I was a little girl, like having a little diary, the ones with the little key lock, and thinking I need to write down my stories. And I remember even watching Oprah and Oprah saying how she had hundreds of journals because she journaled her whole life and all of this stuff. And so I remember putting this pressure on myself that I would need to journal. I would throughout my life, I was thinking like, what story do I want to tell? But I have so many of these stories where I would tell myself, okay, I'm starting the new diet plan. I'm going to do the thing. And this time, Shannon, you're going to journal too. And so I would buy a fancy book. I would tell myself, get a fancy pen. I would say, okay, this is the time. This is the time that you're going to journal. And then I would do it for a couple of days. I would write down like what I did in the day because I would find that I was like, what do I write about? Like, how is this helpful? And so I would start writing and maybe say, oh, I ate the chicken for lunch today or whatever the thing is. I just found that I just could not be consistent with it. I just could not stay consistent. I would try over and over and over again. I tell this to you because I think it's an important part, a pressure that we put on ourselves that then gives us another reason to quit, another reason to beat ourselves up and tell ourselves that we're not good enough, we're not doing it right, we're never going to lose the weight. Journaling, the definition really is it's a record of experiences, ideas, or reflections for private use. And I think about how I teach it with all of my Transform bosses. I teach it differently. And the reason why is because as I started this process of losing weight for the last time, started doing the work on myself, on my thinking and how my mindset and all the mental weight, I realized that I was missing a few things when it came to writing. And I think writing is very powerful, but I needed it to be different because journaling in the traditional way was not working and I needed something different. And so I like to call it reflection. And I'm going to talk about it in a way that I think is different from anyone else teaching it. And so when I think about journaling, what comes up for me is perfectionism. I need to do it every day. It doesn't really have a purpose, maybe like a record of my day or what I'm doing. And what happens is when I think about journaling and journaling every day, I feel overwhelmed. I mean, have you ever just felt that feeling of overwhelm? Like, oh, I'm trying to do this. Or you sit down to start writing and you're just like, like, what am I supposed to write? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how is this going to help me? And what I think journaling, the lack of purpose. See, in everything that most of us want to do, we want to understand the why. We want to understand the purpose of it. How is it going to help me? What is it going to do for me? Losing weight and starting to heal your relationship with food, yourself. This is all about the mental weight. See, the physical weight will release. And even if it releases before you've done the work on the mental weight, you'll end up gaining it back because the mental weight is actually what's dragging you down. The mental weight, the beliefs, the stories, how things from the past are showing up to today. I like to teach reflection work. It just has a different meaning for me. And so I want to share this with you. See, reflection work is about taking old stories or current stories that are holding me down. Maybe it's just a thought. Maybe it's just a sentence. And I like to just dump it on paper. So I think about this and visualize, I'm going to take all the negative chatter or some of the negative chatter, and I'm just going to dump it on a piece of paper. And when you think about reflection work, that's what it is. It's not a record of your experience. It's not a long 5-page, 2-page, whatever. It can be what I like to call snack reflection, a sentence. I noticed today that after I overate, that I was just really irritated with my partner. And that's all you have to write. See, when you start dumping, you start getting it out of your brain, you start seeing it on paper, you can then decide what you want to do. And sometimes it's just the process of putting it on paper. I actually keep none of my reflection work. I don't keep my reflection journals. I don't keep the notebooks. Sometimes my reflection is on a Post-it note or a napkin. I just write it down again because it's this process of getting it out of my brain. It's the process of seeing on paper, writing it, what I'm thinking. See, this is what brings awareness. We have 60, 100,000 thoughts, they say, in our brain. Most of them you don't know. I mean, probably 95% you don't know what's going on in your brain. So much of it's in your subconscious, in your automatic brain. And so you don't know. The process of asking yourself a question, I just like to say like, hey, why did I overeat today? And then just whatever that sentence is, whatever that story is, I just like to write it on a piece of paper because then I then can see it on the paper and decide, is this true? Is this what I want to think? Is this serving me? And then I can just rip it up and move on. I don't have to carry that mental weight. I tell you, this process of reflection work or snack reflection, where you're just a little snack, you're just writing a sentence or two. It releases the overwhelm and the pressure. I got to start my day out with writing my journal. No, you can just release it. You just dump it out on a piece of paper. Whenever, maybe it's before you go to bed, maybe it's during the middle of the day. There's no time, there's no rules. See, rules for many of us, food rules, diet rules, all these things, they just bring up our inner rebel. With reflection work, it's just a reflection. It's a simple sentence, maybe 2 or 3, where you're just dumping out. And then as you do this, you might find you have 4 or 5 sentences. You don't have any pressure or rules or guidelines. You just want to get whatever's in your brain out on a piece of paper. And then you can decide what you want to do with it. Maybe you just want to rip it up. Maybe you just want to know like, oh, okay, that's what I was thinking. Maybe I want to think something different. Maybe I want to practice a different story because this story or this thought isn't serving me. It's not helping me. So here's my take. Number 1, in reflection work, you're just going to dump the negative chatter, the challenges, the old stories. And again, it can just be 1, 2 sentences, a line. You know, what's interesting is I said I don't keep mine. And mostly you can't even read them because I like the privacy of it too. I don't want anyone to look at. Right now I have a little book and, I just buy a cheap little dollar with notebook paper in it. And I just dump it all out, 1 or 2, or sometimes it's 10 sentences. Then I write it in a way that I'm not sure anyone else could read it actually, because I don't need to. I can see it as I'm writing it and then understand what it means. But if I ever went back to it, I wouldn't remember. I wouldn't be able to really tell what was written. So again, this is not perfectionism. This is just dumping it out on a piece of paper. Number 2, it's a good chance for you to write a win, a success. See, our brains are programmed to think about what we should be doing, what we're doing wrong, all the things. And so this reflection work is a chance for you to write a success, a win. Oh, today I could have eaten, but I left a bite. You know what? I listened to this podcast. Ooh, that's a win. Oh, you know what? I wrote a couple sentences, a couple negative things that were bothering me. I wrote it on a piece of paper. Ooh, that's a win. Celebrating it. And again, you can do this multiple times a week. If you start even with once a week, where you just start to see, like, how am I winning? How am I succeeding? See, your brain is always going to go to what you're failing or your challenges. I just want you to see how you're winning, what you're doing right. Number 3, make it private. So in whatever way, form, or fashion, When you have negative chatter in your brain and you go to write it out, if you don't know that that's going to be private, you won't be able to write it on paper. And so whether that means you rip it up as soon as you write it where no one else could read it, you keep it in the place that no one's going to see it. This is for you. This isn't for anyone else. And so number 3, make it private. Number 4, do a snack reflection. A snack reflection is just, you don't need to write a book. You just 1 or 2 sentences, dump them out on the paper, and then allow yourself to look at it, decide what you want to do with it, and then just move on. And number 5, you can also use prompts or questions. And if you are in Transform Boss, we have in our planner a whole list of different questions that you can ask yourself. It can be as simple as like, hey, I overate. Why? Why is one of the most powerful questions that we have. Hey, I'm feeling something today. Why? What's going on in there? When you ask yourself a question, you get into your thinking brain and you will be amazed at what happens. And so if you have a hard time like recognizing your negative chatter, maybe you're like, Shannon, I never have negative chatter, or you don't remember it, right? Again, just ask yourself a question. I stopped at Krispy Kreme even though I told myself I wasn't going to, and I ate all the donuts. Why? What did I tell myself? And then just allow yourself to write. See, I believe that writing is magic. This act of putting it on paper, seeing it at the moment, and then releasing it, I believe is another piece that can really help you on this journey. You can become aware of what you're thinking, and then you can decide, maybe you want to keep thinking it, or maybe you just want to let it go because it just doesn't serve you any longer. Getting out of your head and starting to become conscious is how you start to work on the mental weight that is just so heavy, that is holding you down when you want to fly. And if you want to lose weight for the last time, maybe you want to make it easier on yourself, you want to feel better, then there's a couple ways. 1, follow this podcast. So go to the top and follow it. Number 2, get on my email list. And number 3, go to jointransformboss.com and you can go there and you can find out all sorts of information. To get on my email list, you're going to go to bflycoaching.com/email, bflycoaching.com/email. Let's go. All right, my love. Bye for now.